And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking David Coulthard saying Lewis Hamilton is an anomaly. Yes, as in a good thing. Obviously, as we know, David Coulthard, a Red Bull ambassador. But he appeared on the very awesome Red Flags podcast, and he essentially was talking about the greatest of all time, and talking about your Verstappen, your Schumachers, your Sennas, etc., and how and why Lewis Hamilton stands out. So here it is. I'm not going to play the whole podcast. Obviously, these guys do really well. The link is in the description. But if you type the Red Flags podcast into YouTube, you're going to find it. It's just about 30 seconds to a minute, which we'll comment on, where Coulthard is talking about the greatest drivers, the best drivers, and he did have something that I thought was really, really quite interesting to say. And here we go.
And and Max has been doing that for a long time. So Lando will get there. And he'll get there, and he'll win more races. He'll win champions.
And they're talking about, obviously, Lando Norris maybe being too nice and not aggressive enough. And that's something a lot of people have said this year, particularly this year in Formula 1, years before, but especially this year, and in relation to racing against Max Verstappen.
On his talent. But Max that's why he deserves to be in the same category as an Ayrton, a Michael. I say Lewis, but I put in brackets Lewis because Lewis actually has done it in a very, let's say, uncontroversial way.
Yeah. And I think he's right. Before we go into it, in terms of uncontroversial, yes, there have been controversies with Lewis Hamilton, for example, sharing his data from the Belgian Grand Prix a few years back, when he was teammates with Jenson Button. We have the Silverstone, where he was predominantly to blame. But in terms of fighting for the championship, where we have Ayrton Senna, Japan, in the 1990. We have Michael Schumacher in 94 in Adelaide, 97 in Jerez, and he was obviously a very hard driver. Max Verstappen has been, let's be fair, he has been too aggressive. When you look at it, since the penalty point has come in, he's at the top. So that is most certainly saying something. And Lewis is not that kind of a driver. He is very clean.
I know there was the contacts with Max in Max's first championship year at Silverstone. That's about as much sort of on the edge contact I've seen from Lewis. He's a very clean racer. He manages to keep out of a lot of controversy through his career. So he's this sort of anomaly in that group of the villains that you say.
I want to.
Yeah, and I thought that was really, really telling. And obviously, it's hit the press, and that's really, really telling how clean Lewis Hamilton is compared when you look at the greats of your Sennas, your Schumachers, and now people are talking about Verstappen being one of the greats. And it says, like this article says here, thinking back to Ayrton Senna, Michael Schumacher, and more recently Max Verstappen, they've all been involved in their fair share of incidents. As we know, Senna and Prost in that championship finale, we have just mentioned that at Suzuka. Schumacher won at Jerez, and Verstappen on multiple occasions with quite a few of his rivals, with Kimi Räikkönen, Sebastian Vettel, Lewis Hamilton, Lando Norris. And it says, looking back at Hamilton's career, though, David Coulthard has been impressed with his ability to avoid incidents. And here we go. Yeah, I've seen Lewis. He's a clean racer, and I think he is. I think it'll be tough to argue, particularly when compared to your Verstappen, your Senna, your Schumacher, who are once again in line for the greatest of all time. If you want to have that debate, and he said, I think there's a comfortable period where they had a car advantage, and he's an exceptional driver. It doesn't diminish the results he's had, but of course, when he's gone wheel to wheel with Max, normally Max has come out in front. Coulthard says now. And that's been asked about whether Hamilton can have more success. Can he have more success in the future? I think he can. But I think the reason Max has come out in front is because his pure aggressiveness and people avoiding an incident, which is kind of what Lando Norris has said. But let's be honest, Max is very talented. He didn't win Brazil for nothing. And if he did have a car advantage in Brazil, it wasn't that much. In the sprint race, it did show he was not looking bad at all, was he? But as we know, next year Lewis Hamilton faces an entirely new challenge to what he's faced before, taking on a new language, car and team. And let's look at that, because there's a story about that. And once again, continuing what the wonderful David Coulthard has said about Lewis. And as we know, Lewis Hamilton's move to Ferrari was from a frustrated and slightly emotional place. And that's what David Coulthard has suggested. He goes, the former Red Bull McLaren driver feels that Lewis Hamilton's move to Ferrari even, might come from a frustrated and emotional place. He said the F1 legend, he decided early in 2024 that, as we know, he was going to move. It shocked a lot of people, indeed Mercedes as well, although Mercedes apparently knew about it thanks to Carlos Sainz Sr. Coulthard, talking about Hamilton, where he finds himself now, David Coulthard felt that the call made by the driver came from a position of frustration after his struggles. If you remember, 2021, they did have a championship winning car. 22-23, they barely had a winning car. They only won one race, and that was in 2022. Now, Coulthard did, however, draw a comparison between the version of Schumacher that Mercedes got and wondered if Ferrari is going to get something similar from Hamilton. He said, I suspect the move was slightly emotional, and in a frustrated place, some relationships over time become a bit stale. He obviously saw an opportunity with Ferrari, a bit like, I guess, Mercedes when they brought, Schumacher back. And they thought they were getting Michael of his Ferrari era, and then they found out they just got a good Michael when Michael returned to Mercedes. Ferrari may end up being just a good Lewis. A good Lewis is pretty handy, but he's consistently outperformed by George this year. I wouldn't say consistently. In qualifying, yes. In the races, not so much, and maybe not in the championship point table, but in terms of qualifying and that, yeah. And I'm not sure what he means by and that, but yeah. I think that's a bit unfair though, comparing him to the Michael Schumacher at Mercedes, because this is a Michael Schumacher who retired in 2006 and then came back in 2010. Lewis has not retired, but I think we can all agree he does have a big challenge on his hand, and in particular, the biggest challenge on hand is going to be Charles. Coulthard said, what I lacked in my career is qualifying speed. If I look at some of the rest of the drivers, your Mika, Kimi, Michael and Ayrton, and whoever else fit, these guys just had speed. He said, the minute they lose a little bit of speed, I'm not a big football fan, but I hear the analogy about a striker losing a yard, the thing that allowed them to get there and put the ball in the back of the net. He said, the minute they lose that speed, they're still brilliant, but they're not as brilliant as they were. So Lewis may well not quite deliver what he's hoping for, because first of all, he's got to out-qualify Charles. I think Charles at 26, 27 is pretty handy, and may make it difficult for Lewis. I think Charles will. It wouldn't surprise me if Charles out-qualifies Lewis on a regular basis. Having said that, I think Lewis, when he's on form, I don't think Charles will match his race pace. It'd be close, but I don't think he will. So that's basically David Coulthard giving his opinion on Lewis Hamilton being an anomaly in relation to your top echelons of the greatest of all time debate, and I think he is, and that's why I think you could definitely consider Lewis, along with Verstappen, Schumacher, and Senna, one of the greatest of all time. Absolutely. So if you made it to the end, please give us a subscribe. That'll be absolutely amazing, and we will speak to you soon. Stay safe. This is when I press the outro button. There we go. See you later.